How's it going, folks? I hope you're all doing well. So I just finished Silent Hill 2 Remake a couple days ago, twice, and on both playthroughs I got different endings. So I feel like now is a good time to talk about what I thought of the game, and just give my overall thoughts regarding several aspects of the game, and also a bit outside of the game itself. So before we actually talk about the game itself, I feel like it's important to mention that Silent Hill 2 is not even my favorite Silent Hill entering the franchise. I like it a lot, but I'm one of those people that is a bigger fan of Silent Hill 1 and 3 over 2. But this is still a release that I was very much excited for. Not because of the game itself per se, or because it's a remake, but because, you know, if this turned out to be a solid remake, it could potentially mean the revival of Silent Hill. For good. Think about it this way. When was the last time we had a Silent Hill game that almost everybody unanimously agreed that, you know, it's a decent game? Silent Hill 3? Now, when did that come out? 2003? 21 years ago? That is insane to think about. So keeping that thought in mind, let's say that I have a couple of issues with this game. It wouldn't matter too much as long as we get a remake for the first and third games on the same caliber. To be completely honest with all of you, I never even played a single Bloober game before, so I didn't know what to expect, and I also fully understand all the skepticism that I saw regarding this game, even if it felt like a bit overkill at times. But Bloober actually did it. They made such a great remake. A great remake, but not a perfect one. But then again, what is a perfect remake, right? Because in hindsight, I think that even Resident Evil 1 Remake is not a perfect remake. I've seen somebody actually talk about this, and, like, look at it this way. Resident Evil 1 Remake, people hail it as one of the best remakes of all time, if not the best, right? Like the example to, you know, look up to when making a remake. And yet at the same time, that remake is so faithful, it doesn't have the canon ending to that game. When I heard that being said, I was like, hold on a minute. You're right, but please don't misunderstand that as me saying, you know, RE1 Remake is actually a bad game. No way, it's not a bad game. It's one of the best remakes of all time, like I just said, and I still think it holds up really well. But I think, like, when it comes to remakes, we don't need to have a perfect recreation, because it's not going to be a perfect recreation by any means to every single person out there, right? So as long as we have something that respects the source material and tries to recreate it faithfully, even if some areas are, you know, so-and-so for some of us, I think that's still really good. So now let's talk about Silent Hill 2 Remake. Is it a faithful remake? Yes, and I think I'm not the only one in saying that this remake kind of blew our minds in how faithful it is. So for example, in Resident Evil 2 Remake, it's more of a reimagining than a remake because while you do have the same structure as the original, a lot of things such as the voice lines change in how they're said or how they're directed, or some of the scenes themselves are kind of worked around a little bit to change a few things about them, which that is also in Silent Hill 2 Remake. But in Silent Hill 2, you're also going to notice that a lot of the original lines are kept the same. Maybe the tone while saying them is a bit different, but a lot of the original lines are in. It's so faithful that even like the conversation awkwardness that happens between characters in this game is there in the remake. I think that's something that they translated into the remake, like, surprisingly well. There's a couple of new scenes here and there which I thought were actually pretty cool. I didn't think they interfered with anything related to the story per se. So I guess on that topic we can also talk about the voice acting and, you know, the cutscenes and the dialogue and all that. I thought the voice acting was pretty good at the bare minimum for most of the characters. And by good, I don't just mean, oh, like, wow, they modernized the voice acting so now it's like, you know, up to date and all that. That's not what I mean at all, actually. Again, I think the fact that they translated the awkwardness so well is what makes the voice acting so good in this game. Like, you can still tell something is off about pretty much all the characters when they talk. I think my favorite voice acting and performance in this game goes to Luke Roberts, the voice and face behind James Sunderland himself. Man, I don't know what it is, but just the way he's, like, very soft-spoken as James, the way he's, like, awkward and just a kind person in spite of that, like, he does it so well. And even without the lines or saying anything, some of the cutscenes in this game are so impressive because they use, like, you know, body language or, like, facial expressions to tell something or two. And the insane detail behind Luke Roberts' acting and facial expressions as, you know, he goes through the events of the game, it's just so good. Now let's talk about the length of the game. So the original Silent Hill 2, I think if you were to, like, go in blind, it might take you around 10 to 12 hours, maybe even more depending on how lost you get. It's really hard to pinpoint an exact time frame because everybody's playthrough can be different. For the remake, my first playthrough took me about 22 hours, give or take, which is way longer than I expected to, you know, play the game for. But then again, in my playthrough, I tried to look at every single pixel, go to every single corner, look at every sign, look at every poster, read every note that I find. I really took my time with this game. I wanted to appreciate every single nook and cranny. And my god, the detail in this game delivers. Like the amount of different posters, just, you know, different papers, different things in the environment. Like they all have a story to tell. The atmosphere in this remake is amazing. Like I don't think I have any complaints about it at all. The sound design that complements the atmosphere, the music, they really weren't afraid to go in with all of that. You have moments like the original as well where things go dead quiet, but then there's also those moments where, you know, you got like loud stuff just drumming in the background. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So basically, the Silent Hill experience. Also, I know that graphics don't define a game, but my god, the graphics in this game are gorgeous. They're so beautiful. A lot of the times in my playthrough, I couldn't help but just stand still and just look at the environment. Like, everything looks so good. Silent Hill itself looks really pretty, and then also at night it has a completely different feel to it. The game has the 6 original endings, and then it also actually adds 2 new ones. Now, I haven't gotten all the endings, but from what I've seen, the original endings are for the most part recreated faithfully, and they sort of had to do that because Silent Hill 2 in particular has a lot of things that were intentionally put together the way they were in the original. So I'm glad to see that the remake basically recreates all of that. One thing I also gotta give a shout out to, the exploration aspect in this game. It's so good. There's actually a whole bunch of places you can go into, different shops, different areas of Silent Hill itself, you know, optional areas, Easter eggs, my god, the Easter eggs. I can't say too much, but if you play the game, you will see. They knew what they were doing. Honestly, the Easter eggs part made me afraid if Bloober weren't the ones to remake 1 and 3. In my eyes, Bloober did such a good job that I would probably want them to remake 1 and 3 as well. If we get 1 and 3 on the same quality as Silent Hill 2 Remake, I think I can die a happy man. The combat is pretty simple, but personally I found it to be pretty heavy, as in like, there's a lot of impact to your hits. I also like the dodge system because it adds a new touch to the combat that the original didn't have. I've seen feedback saying that they should add like parrying and that kind of thing, but I feel like parrying might be a little overkill for Silent Hill because people were angry as it is about James, you know, just having the ability to dodge or like holding the pistol with 2 hands. Me personally, those things don't bother me. I think the game itself is really good. It plays well. The pacing is also pretty good, though I will say I think a couple of the areas dragged a little bit. I think the hospital and the labyrinth especially could have been shortened just a little bit. Now, my major problem with the remake is honestly just the lack of unlockables and incentive to go after the other endings. Now, maybe this is not gonna age well and there will be unlockables that I don't know about, but as far as I know, I've seen people beating like the other endings and I didn't hear about any unlockables. Like, you know, it would have been sick if, for example, Maria had her classic costume from Silent Hill 2, or maybe even give James an outfit. The DLC headpieces are nice, but I would have rathered like a full-on costume. I definitely think they should have added more unlockables, whether it's weapons or costumes or, you know, just something. Because as it is, while I do sort of want to get the other endings, I feel like there's not really much reason for me to go and get them besides to, you know, just see them myself. So bearing all of that in mind, the fact that it's a pretty faithful remake that does add a couple of things here and there, but not too much to the point where it becomes a different game. And also the fact that I think it could have used a little more replayability, you know, just a couple weapons that you can unlock, costumes, stuff like that. I think I'm happy to give this game an 8.5. This is a solid Silent Hill experience, and I think this would also be a perfect entry for any newcomers. This is such a good thing about Silent Hill 2. It's a standalone title that doesn't need you to play any of the other titles, unlike, you know, Silent Hill 1, and then there's 3 as a continuation for 1, which is probably also why they remade this game first, because it's also just the most popular Silent Hill. And yeah, I'm just really happy to see that Silent Hill may once again shine as bright as it did in the early 2000s. I hope that we get remakes of 1 and 3, especially Silent Hill 1, because I just want to see my man Harry remastered in 4K 60 FPS. If anyone watching ever wanted to get into Silent Hill but you never knew how to, I think this game is the perfect way to do that now. So I think I mentioned everything that I had to say about this game in a nutshell. If there's something that I didn't mention, you can tell me in the comments and I'll get back to you. But yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it was an enjoyable watch, and I hope you enjoy the game if you plan to buy it, or if you bought the game, I hope you enjoyed it. And that's gonna be all for this video. Now you guys take care, stay safe, and stay healthy. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.